willing to do what it takes to get there. I think he signed to One Warrior.
Yeah, I was gonna say that he signed to One Warriors. I think he did an episode with
Amo DL, those guys. I haven't really. I would love to.
I think any fighter has a chance.
Very good evening and Eid Mubarak, Selamat Hari Raya Aidil Fitri to all Malaysians and beyond. It's a very special evening tonight. It's 9 p.m. here in Malaysia on the MASMMAA Facebook page. I am Rashid Saleh, the president of MASMMAA, and alongside me is Daniel from South 4 Malaysia, my co-host. And this evening we've got a very special show for you. Of course, it's entitled BJJ and Youth in MMA, and something that we've wanted to discuss for a very long time, and we've got some very special guests with us. So I'm not going to waste too much time. I'd like to introduce them one by one. The first person is from Northern Ireland. I think it's 2 p.m. in the UK right now. He is the founder and chairman of the Ulster Amateur MMA Association, and is currently also the IMMAF Youth Development Commission and also the coaching committee as well. So let's introduce him to our show, Danny Corr from Northern Ireland. Hi, Danny. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. Thank you. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Right. Next up, he is joining us all the way from Miami, USA. He is a 5th degree BJJ Black Belt. He's also an MMA veteran, and he's the founder of the Marcos Escobar Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Association and a pioneer of a BJJ school in Malaysia. So let's welcome him onto our show, Marcos Escobar. Hi, sir. How are you?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me. Selamat Hari Raya Aidil Fitri.
Thank you.
To everybody in Malaysia. And
thank you very much.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Great. And next guest, he's all the way from Malaysia. He was the MASMMAA Malaysian multiple heavyweight champion, including a 17-second TKO. He is also involved as our MASMMAA Youth Development Committee from Sabah, but now is based in Peninsula, and also a father of a 1-year-old baby. Let's welcome Darren Lowe. Darren, how are you?
Hey guys, pleasure to be here. I'm good.
Great. Really looking forward to having everyone impart their knowledge today. So I'm going to leave you guys for a while. I'm going to get Daniel to do all the intros first in terms of the BJJ. But I will be back in a bit. See you guys in a bit.
Hey guys, how you doing? Yeah, my name is Daniel. My name is Daniel Chi, and I'm from South of Malaysia. And we're gonna get straight into getting to know each other and stuff like that. I'll start with Danny. Danny, would you like to introduce yourself about who you are and what you do? Danny Corr. Yeah.
I can't hear you, Daniel.
Again?
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, we're having that again.
Okay, no worries. So Danny, can you hear me? Hang on a minute.
Oh, well, they can't hear anyone.
Okay, I tell you what, I'm gonna Prof Marcos, you can hear me? Darren, you can hear me?
Yep,
I'm
all
good.
clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Okay.
And the rest of you?
Can't
Yep.
Oh,
hear
okay.
Daniel.
Hang on.
Bit of
What we'll do
static, but not too bad.
We will do this. Danny, speak to Darren first.
Yeah. Yep. I don't think Danny can
Yep, I
hear
can
you,
hear.
Rashid.
I mean, sorry, Darren. Daniel,
Yes.
speak to Darren first.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, same question why I give to Danny, but I'm going to give one to Darren about introduce who you are and your career as you come into mixed martial arts. Did you start with BJJ, by the way?
Yes, I did actually. In fact, I'm Marcus's student. So I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 12 years now, and from that into boxing into MMA.
Okay. And
Yep.
how did you find that career path? I mean, not career path, but how did you find your way into that? Like, how did you meet Marcos Escobar, professor? Yeah.
Oh, I actually started training in Melbourne at Ground Zero under Rob Williams, and then when I graduated from uni and came back to Malaysia, like Marcus was the only black belt in Malaysia at the time. So, our paths crossed, and I've been with him until today.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna kick the question out to Professor Marcos Escobar now, and you've had quite a life of mixed martial arts in general, a huge life. And the first question I want to ask is, how did you find yourself into Malaysia?
Well, it's a curious story. At first, I was invited to move to Malaysia to work for a big fitness company. And I arrived in Malaysia for the fitness industry, but I was already like a black belt. I was already doing jiu-jitsu, and I felt the need to keep my training. And it was really hard to find a place. It was actually impossible to find a place to train. And that's when I started a small group. And later on, I officialized like the start of jiu-jitsu without even knowing. I was the first one, but when I got to KL was to do some full-time job with fitness, you know, and led me to jiu-jitsu.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, God.
Well, it's a blessing that you are here in Malaysia, actually, because if it wasn't for you to pioneer and help the jiu-jitsu community here, it wouldn't be growing, you know, and the influence through gyms and the affiliations. Like Malaysian Jiu-Jitsu is bigger than ever right now. So thank you so much, Professor, for that. I
thank you, guys.
I have one question for you, Professor. I read up somewhere and it said that you had a Kung Fu background before you got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's absolutely true. When I was really young, I was a huge fan of Bruce Lee. Actually, I think all my generation was fans of Bruce Lee and Rocky Balboa. I think that was like I don't know. At least my friends and we were like very like addicted to that. Until nowadays, I watch all the time. And when I was really young, I wanted to do some Kung Fu because of Bruce Lee. And one day I remember my grandfather, he walked me to there was an academy near my mom's house, and we walked there, and I registered right away, and I started training Kung Fu for like, I don't know, 5-6 years. At first was like North Shaolin style. Later on, Charlie Fu, more like Chinese boxing. So actually was pretty good at this, and it was a very nice experience, a very nice learning experience. And yeah, I don't know what you guys heard that, but I don't talk about it much, but yeah, I did it. I'm glad I did.
I've known you 10 years and you've never said that before.
Oh my.
Kung Fu, huh? So Danny, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, now we can't hear him.
Now we can't hear him. Okay. You can hear us, but we can't hear him. Oh, hang on a minute. The wonders of technology. Everything was all right until we went live. But it's okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll quickly kick you out, but I'll get you back in. I'm sure third time lucky will be great. Okay, Darren. Go on then.
Yeah, I just want to ask Darren now about like how, I mean, when was the last fight you had in MMA was like what, 7 years ago?
2017.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah,
MASMMAA 5. Yep.
Yeah, and since then, like since your last fight and MASMMAA 5, was there any like interest to pursue MMA? Because I know that right now you are a lot more into jiu-jitsu, right?
Well, I still do miss MMA. I just haven't been able to train properly due to lack of sparring partners my size, and yeah, the longevity in MMA is a bit difficult. Like my approach to MMA is to focus specifically for a fight. So I'll go through an 6 to 8 week training camp in preparation for my MMA fight. But out of fight season, I'd be doing jiu-jitsu, boxing, and trying to work on the technical aspects of my game. So I don't really train MMA per se. but I do focus my training towards MMA leading up to fights. And that's just been difficult to do in Malaysia with the current training partners I have access to here.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Right, Danny, can you hear us now? You can hear us, but you can't speak. That's so weird. Is your
Maybe
mic on mute?
His mic is mute, maybe.
Yeah, I'm just checking. No, his mic is all right. His mic is all right. It's all right. We'll get him. We'll get him. We still got a lot of time.
Technology.
Yeah. Still got a lot of time. It was so good before he came on. But don't worry. What if you can hear us? Just what you might do is just quickly turn off your phone and turn it back on, and then we'll get you back in, because you're in the second half of the show, so it'll be all right. Okay.
The tricks of being live. The tricks of being live.
The tricks of coming in late. What it's all about. Okay. I'll let you carry on first.
Okay, I wanted to kick the question back onto Professor, because I know that you went to Nova União to pursue further, and it was specifically to pursue into MMA, right?
Yes, that's true.
And since then, you had 2 fights. And I just want to ask the same question of what I asked to Darren, like since that last fight, and I got it mixed up just now. 7 years ago, last fight was your fight, Professor, that you fought in, was it?
Choto, Brazil.
Yeah, it was Choto, Brazil. Since then, there was no activity in MMA. I just want to ask if, why?
When I started, MMA was very personal to me. You know, back in the 90s, I believe every jiu-jitsu fighter wanted to merge into MMA to experience the cage, the ring, the blows. You know, and when I got the opportunity to, because at the same time I always wanted to do MMA, because I always wanted to experience, to test my jiu-jitsu. You know, in a hand-to-hand fighting situation, but at the same time I always wanted to do that. I also wanted to do in a proper stage, you know, not like in a background event, kind of, you know. And when one championship showed me the opportunity, I right away I embraced, and I signed a contract. Unfortunately, they didn't give me more fights because I was ready to finish, you know, to fulfill all my 4 fights in the contract. But anyways, I knew I wasn't that young anymore. I knew that my MMA career would be a little shorter than other guys. You know, I probably wouldn't have the time maybe to go to a title shot or something like that, but I still wanted to do it, and that's why I didn't have so many fights. I also had so many injuries along the way. It's a rough path to go through, and I have too many cancellations, fighting cancellations. You know, I was supposed to fight again after this last fight, and I was ready to go at 70 kilos. I was on the weight, lightweight, and my opponent dropped the fight like 2 days before. I remember until like it was yesterday. I was at the gym doing my weight cut in the morning, and the opponent communicated the managers that he wasn't feeling well. He wanted to match up the weight in above division. I remember Aldo was passing by, and he heard the managers talking to me. He said, "No fucking way. Yeah, talk to that there. You already made weight. You will not fight it," because the guy wants to match up like 10 kilos heavier, you know. And then it was in the middle of the World Cup, and that they could not fight another opponent. It was too like short notice.
Okay.
And then I end up like saying, you know, I think I'm gonna go back to jiu-jitsu. yeah, I just had a rough time, and because it happens a lot of times. I was very unlucky in that time because a lot of opponents jump out the fights, and some fights didn't happen. And I wanted to do at least like 5 or 6 fights, you know. But what's good? It was an amazing experience. I had a great time. Helped me a lot. Understanding a different environment, helping some of my boys, you know, and understanding how these guys, what these guys were experiencing inside the cage. So I had a little more, you know, to talk to my students and to understand the entire process. I think that's important, at least to understand the process. And I had a lot of fun. I cannot deny it was fun as hell.
All right, Danny, can you hear us now?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, you're very clear now.
Oh,
Right.
happy days, yeah.
Before we talk to you,
Yeah.
he is here now. Let me see what he's. Sorry, let me see whether he's around or not. Okay. Let me just check him. He's coming. All right. Okay. So we've got our final guest. He's been doing martial arts all his life and is a Malaysian MMA pioneer. He's the first Malaysian to receive a black belt in BJJ. He currently coaches BJJ at Q23 BJJ Academy in Bangkok. So let's welcome him. He's just finished the class. That's why he didn't pick up the phone. So, Prof Adam, how are you? Can you hear us?
Check.
Yeah,
Check.
we can hear you.
Test.
Yes, testing. Can you hear us?
No.
Okay, I'll kick him out and we'll bring him back in.
Nice.
Okay.
It's like a bouncing virus right now.
Yeah,
Bouncing virus. It's COVID-19. Right, Danny, give us a little bit of your background, how you got into martial arts and to where we are. I know we haven't got all day, but
yeah.
very excited to speak. So tell us a bit.
Well, my background, this is my 40th year in martial arts. So I started karate, and I got to fifth dan in karate. I competed for Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Great Britain in that. Then I moved on to a thing called sport jiu-jitsu, which is pretty much MMA but wearing the gi. I won a world title in that in 2007, I think it was, and then and another one in 2010 in Las Vegas. But I've been coaching for 30 plus years, and that's where my passion is. And I started a gym about 20 years ago, and it's just progressed since then. So that's a shortcut to it all. There you go.
Oh my God, that's a really shortcut. Okay, Dan, let me try and sort out Adam, and then. Oh wait, hang on. Let's get the surprise.
Working.
Now it's working. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Aí, Marcão. Fala aí, meu irmão. Saudades de você, pô.
Saudade, meu irmão.
Beleza, meu irmão. Beleza.
All right.
Sorry.
Oh no worries. I know we haven't seen each other for a long time. Anyway,
we love each other too much. No homo.
So, see, Danny, this is what I told you about BJJ, guys. As
All
you know.
about the hugs. We give the best hugs in the industry.
That's true.
So we've been told. Anyway, Selamat Hari Raya, Prof Adam.
Selamat Hari Raya, maafkan batins, guys. All right. Oh, so I'll just take a quick minute. Selamat Hari Raya. Wish you guys all the best for this year. You know, health, sanity, especially during this time. You know, and of course, community.
Okay, great. Thank you. How you been? Danny, you got any questions for him first?
For which one? For
Daniel.
Oh, me. Okay.
Daniel, sorry.
Yeah.
God, I forgot there's two Daniel.
There's two Dannies in this one.
Daniel, young
the old one and the young one.
God.
With beard or without?
Malaysian Dan.
Anyways, okay, yeah, I'll quickly hit a startup question for Professor Adam. Professor Adam, about
I didn't do it.
What?
I didn't do it.
You were the one.
Reflex. Sorry, it's just reflex.
No, I wanted to ask about how did you find yourself into jiu-jitsu? Now, I heard, not I heard, I read up online that it was from a street fight.
Yeah, for jiu-jitsu it was a street fight, but judo was because when I was in year 1, I got beaten up by a girl in year 3, and my dad said like, nope, no, my son is doing something.
Okay.
So he put me into judo, and that was the start of my martial arts. But jiu-jitsu, the reason why I got into jiu-jitsu, was because my brothers and we got into a bit of a scuffle in New South Head Road in Sydney, near a cinema that was next to a bar. We weren't going in the bar by any chance, so just that you know, just to be clear. And we got into a scuffle. What happened was there was a few racist terms that were being thrown around, and I was like, hey man, that ain't right. And then the guy goes, yeah. I was like, yeah. And then I thought, I'm gonna throw this guy head first into the concrete because I do judo. So I did in my perspective, it looked awesome, but I got the guy in what they call a koshiguruma, and I threw the guy, wham, and I got rolled. And then the next thing I knew, he rolled on top of me. And then I was praying to God for dear life that this guy would not rearrange this Calvin Klein face, right? So, but if it was a judo competition, I would have gotten ippon and I would have won. But the guy was on top of me. All I just remember doing was I just hugged this guy for dear life, and then a mate of his was about to stomp my head in with his cowboy boot.
Oof.
And my late brother came running in, tackled, pulled the guy off, you know, and I was able to scramble off, and you know, he saved me, my older brother, as older brothers usually do. And that night I was left sleepless. I was like, yo, I do full contact karate, I do taekwondo, I do judo, and why did that happen? And I used to do boxing in high school, amateur boxing, right? The first thing that came to me was I grabbed this guy and I threw him, and then it got, you know, technically it was okay, but yeah, it almost didn't quite work out for me. So, you know, till today, I'm still thankful for my late brother for saving my rear. And then that night, I was just like, yo, it was just bugging the hell out of me. It was eating at my soul. And then I went back home for New Year's to see my parents. And then my brothers and we went down to Chinatown, you know, back in the day, the VHS, right? So all the original copy videotapes, right? So then I found the first UFC there, and then that was it. I said, I gotta look for this. And then when I went back to Australia, I tried hide and low, and the best thing I got at the time was pancras, hybrid wrestling.
Oh, pancras,
and
yeah,
then
okay.
The guy, Suzuki, Minonori, Funaki, all those guys. And the guy that was doing pancras in Australia at the time, his name was Chris DeWeaver, an American, was friends with Bas Rutten. And he later on, just out of sheer luck, bumped into a Brazilian at a beach, because that's where they usually are in Australia, in Bondi Beach. See, Marcos is not saying anything, and he's adjusting his glasses because he knows it's true. Right? And he met a guy by the name of Fernando Freitas. And Fernando Freitas was a student under Walter Matos and Mahio Sperry. And then it just got the ball rolling, you know. We went to the local Police Citizens Youth Club, like the YMCA, and I just remember just being choked out over and over and over again. I thought, oh, this is for me.
Right.
So,
Wow.
Danny, I'm Danny Senior. I'm sure there's no like nice beaches in in Northern Ireland.
Oh, we've lovely beaches.
Yeah,
but
okay.
They're cold.
Yeah, that's why. That's the only thing. Why? I mean, you started this youth thing. Why MMA, even though you've come from a karate background?
The hook of it. I mean, we started getting into MMA about 15, 20 years ago. One of my longest students at the time, a guy called Rowan Prendeville, who was already a sport jiu-jitsu world champion, decided he wanted to get into MMA. And I thought, well, we'll have to help him do this properly, you know. But it's to answer the question, it's a hook of MMA for young people. Young people want something that replaces that adrenaline buzz of out doing street fighting, like Professor was talking about there, you know, or getting into drugs or getting into alcohol or antisocial behavior. You can replace that with MMA. So that's why MMA works so well, you know.
Right.
I'm more disturbed that somebody with a cowboy boot was trying to beat you up, you know. So that's freaked me out.
Hey, in Australia, we have cowboys too, buddy.
Woo! No way.
I just remember seeing that at the point of it, I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is going to hurt. And then my brother comes in and then boom.
All right.
And I was understand why Adam has the reaction of like, wasn't me. That's why he has his reactions.
Okay, Darren,
truth, Marcus.
all right. Darren, you know, you started off what with BJJ or some? What was your first martial arts?
First martial art was actually karate as a kid.
Karate.
And then later on, I went into powerlifting competitively while my brother was in judo. So I joined him for a couple of classes in judo along the years and really enjoyed it. And when I got injured for powerlifting, I wanted to go into a grappling sport. And just by luck, the gym that was closest to me at the time in Melbourne was Ground Zero, and it happened to be a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym. So yeah, it all started from there. I went straight into BJJ, and the rest is history. You know, later on into boxing, and from boxing into MMA.
Right, Prof Marcos. What was BJJ like when you first came here? Was it non-existent in Malaysia?
Well, like I used to say, I don't like to say like non-existent because we have Adam here. You know, if Adam is here, it's because I believe somehow it was existent. What I like to say is that officially, I don't believe there was any, because I tell you guys, I looked for a Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Like I was running crazy. Because every time I had, back in the days, I had 2 vacations, very, very fortunate, right? Along the year. So I used to go back to Brazil twice a year, and for 1 month, my company allowed that. And every time I went back to Brazil back in the days, I used to like train like crazy because it was very hard for me to find training in Malaysia. I used to do drills. I used to do things that people nowadays do often at the academies, but it wasn't that normal. So I don't think I looked for Jiu-Jitsu academies, and I asked people about Jiu-Jitsu, and the reaction was like, was tough, because I was telling people, do you know any Jiu-Jitsu academy? People were like, Jiu-Jitsu academy? What's that? And I was sort of grappling, sort of like judo, and they're like, they didn't know judo. I was like, people knew Silat. Silat, everybody knew it, you know? So I said, no, judo, like martial arts. Oh, martial arts, kung fu, Silat. I said, no. Do you know wrestling? And they like, oh, WWE. I said, no.
Yeah, I knew it's going to come.
And then I was like, no, like Olympic wrestling. Olympic wrestling? I'm like, UFC. UFC was already in the market, in the media, but this was like 2005, 2006. UFC, I know. Is that a video game? People didn't know. So that was the toughest for me, like to. So that's why I like to say that, I don't know. Adam Adam maybe has more property than I to talk about it because I couldn't
I
find
got some
it.
stories.
I
But
couldn't find
just
it.
to be clear, Rashid. Okay, so yeah,
wait,
I'm
before
Malaysia's
you
first
yeah,
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. But Marcus was the first black belt in Malaysia.
yes,
Make sense?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
because when Professor Marcos when he came to Malaysia and he was spreading jiu-jitsu and teaching jiu-jitsu and training jiu-jitsu, he was already a Brazilian champion. Like you just read his CV, right? It reads longer than an apple pie recipe. It's like so much, right?
I wish.
So yeah, but the thing was, I was just a brown belt, and I was only a state champion. I was a Brazilian champion, Southern Brazilian champion, purple belt, and I got my brown belt, and I came back to Malaysia in between Australia. But in between my travels between Australia and Malaysia, college and Malaysia, back and forth, right? Malaysia already had Professor Escobar, right? So Malaysia was Malaysia was blessed with the first high pedigree black belt. It was just that jiu-jitsu wasn't that famous at the time, and then Professor Escobar he laid in all the hard groundwork. I was just a brown belt, just, hey, you want to train, and I come in and out. So just to be clear.
Okay, yeah, understood. But Adam, I still remember the first time we met when you came on the breakfast show. It was a live breakfast show, and then you.
Why do you want to guilt trip me?
I have to remind you.
Rashid?
I'm going to guilt trip you forever because of that, and that was the first time that Were you already doing MMA at the time? This was back.
Yeah,
in
I was.
2005?
I did.
2005?
So when I was a brown belt, I used to fight in amateur judo and XFC in Queensland. But when I first came onto your show, that was the first time I was ranked number 10 in Thailand in Ratchadamnern, a Muay Thai stadium. And I had just won the WPMF World Muay Thai title for under 75 in Nakhon Sawan in Thailand. And yeah, so my MMA and my jiu-jitsu, because in Thailand I was earning Thai baht as a Thai fighter, and especially in the beginning, if you're not the bee's knees in Thai boxing, the pay is you have to subsidize the pay with something else. So I end up meeting up with a guy by the name of Niti Techot Tiasni, who's the current Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu president of Thailand, and I would teach part-time in his classes. Oh, actually, it was part-time, but it was every day. So I'd be training Muay Thai in the morning, afternoon teaching, afternoon private classes, and then evening Muay Thai training, and then at night teaching Jiu-Jitsu. And I was doing that for quite a while, man, to keep the balanced income. And then my wife at the time was also a school teacher, and then in the Bangkok Christian College. So, we were all trying to make our ends meet then.
All right.
But yeah, to cut story short, I was doing MMA when I was, and you know what? Just to be fair though, wasn't I? I was polite, right? I was a nice person on that show.
Yeah. You just kicked me against the wall, even though I had pads on. Yeah. You said a bit too much adrenaline then. Anyway,
kick the pads. I want to see. And I said, "You sure?"
I remember. Yeah. Okay. And I flew on live television. Anyway, Danny Senior.
Senior.
Quickly, yeah, Danny Senior. This is Danny Junior, Danny Senior. Right, Danny. I've spoken to you a few times over Facebook Messenger, and then tried to catch you during the World Championships. But finally got round to doing it. So I'm going to ask you again. How long did it take for you to get the youth development setup done? Because we're trying to get to the same level, and Darren and I are working on this. But how long did
Yeah.
it take you, and where did you start?
I think if I'm honest, I can track it back around 5 years ago when I first started. I went over to Brazil, to the Mare Favela, to work and coach with a group called Fight for Peace, who were doing this in the favela. They had a gym specifically built in there to get kids education, get them employment and youth services. And it just, once I was there for about 10 days or so, I just realized that we could replicate this back in the north of Ireland, because a lot that happens in Brazil and a lot that has happened in Brazil is very similar to the troubles and the history that we've had in this country. So we have a lot of, whereas Brazil is gang related, we have have had a lot of paramilitarism, a lot of drug related issues, and because of that, a lot of youths who have got involved in that sort of thing and have sort of lost their way in life. So we thought we could replicate this. So we started a pilot here. We brought kids in. There's no teenage kids over here in our gym have to pay for their training, and that's something we're adamant about. You know, this is a sport. We want to develop them. We want to help them, not just in the sport but in life. So we make sure their training is free, and the only thing we ask them is commitment. So strangely, if you're not committed, we'll make you pay. But if you're committed, everything is free. Yeah, it's a strange theory, but it does work. But so it means fair, we can get. Yeah, so it means they're.
Can I just ask, how do you make them pay?
We make them.
Because I heard a dip in the tone. We make them.
Yeah, we make them work. We make them wear cowboy boots. You know?
And then let them go hunting for Australians.
Let them go hunting for Australians.
Oh goodness gracious! So anyway,
like so, it was a struggle. A lot of it was funded out of our own pockets for a long time. But we approached government, we approached local government officials, and really, when they see the benefit of it, then they know this is a new thing. We're not, there's a lot of youth groups and a lot of groups that do stuff for kids, but this is very, very unique. We can give them this sport based on all the history of martial arts, of loyalty and respect and commitment, and plus we're giving them a sport to do which has a focus and a long-term focus, and we're not just in there for 6 weeks, do a small program and then we disappear. We're there for life for these kids, and so that process has came to a head now where we're being funded by world bodies like Laureate Sport. We can bring school teachers into the gym, and we now have a ream of kids who started this here now coaches themselves, so it's come full circle.
Nice.
So that's, and we're not looking for fighter. I think where MMA feels slightly, or where it could feel, is that everybody's looking for the best fighter. I mean, that's not going to happen. You want to have something that is a lifetime for these kids, that they can get into employment through it, and they can get exams and qualifications and have something for life for them,
Yeah. Right, Darren, you've gone through MASMMAA. I mean, MASMMAA was pretty much the amateur tournament that really pulled MMA into the masses, and that was started 6-7 years ago. And you've been multiple heavyweight champion because it's so hard to beat you, and not many people your size. But saying that, you've also seen a lot of kids coming through. From your side, this is why I asked you to come in and join. From your experience now, do we have the talent, and where are they?
Sure.
Oh, there's definitely talent out there. I think the biggest issue would be a platform for them to actually showcase that talent. And MASMMAA did a pretty fantastic job of bringing all the initial fighters in, but that was 6 years ago. There are kids now who are training, but without that platform, the interest drops, and they get maybe a year or two in, and there's nowhere further to go. So they either change sports, into Jiu-Jitsu or into Muay Thai with more active sort of communities. And also the the training involved for MMA is so different. You know, the pace and the technicality that's involved, and having the pedigree of coaches to teach that isn't quite there yet in the country. So that's also one thing that has to be addressed eventually. And yeah, like a progression, you know, there's no real sort of established way for them to gauge that as well. So I think until that's put in place, somehow and somewhat parents themselves don't seem too keen to, you know, get their kids into MMA because of the perception with professional mixed martial arts as well as a fight entertainment. So there's so many factors that have to be overcome. But back to your question, yeah, the talent's there. It's everywhere, you know, in the small towns, in the big cities. Like you get all these like really promising athletes, and they come out and they train for a couple of years, and there's no direction. So where to from there, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get back. We will
Yep.
get back to that because there's something that I'd probably like yourself and Danny to help me discuss as well. Daniel, Junior.
I was gonna get the next question over to Professor Marcos. What's this? Now it's no strange thing that you were in Malaysia for a very long time, and then you went off around here and there. The question I have is that where have you been since you were in Malaysia, and where did you spread your seeds of, you know, MEBJJ around?
Well, no, I haven't spread too many seeds.
Keep it PG, Marcus.
It sounded really bad.
PG, man.
Yeah.
God. What stays in Vegas? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, man.
I'm a married guy, so no more seeds. No, but I left Malaysia unofficially in 2012. My dad got sick, so I went back to Brazil to stay close to my family. And my dad passed right after. But I kept doing some back and forth and staying longer in KL than in Brazil. So my family missed me more than my students, because I remember 2012 I left back, but not permanently. Then I kept going back and forth. And then I moved. No, then I stayed in Brazil until 2000. Well, from 2012 to 2014, I spent more time in Asia than Brazil.
Okay.
That I remember. And I spent a little time, 3 months in California, helping a friend. And but always like everywhere. But that was terrible because I had my daughter, I had my wife, my family. So I didn't want to keep traveling. And I just wanted to bring my daughter to America. I believe it's a good place to raise it and stuff. Malaysia was really hard for me in terms of first visa. After my visa expired, to get another visa was really hard. We had a hard time, you know. And then that's when I started thinking about leaving, because I said, if it's so illegally, I would never stay. Illegally, I would never stay. So we got an attorney, immigration attorney, to help us. Couldn't solve the problem. I don't know what the problem was. I believe it was money. And that's when I said enough, you know. It was the same time the immigration in Malaysia, they had changed the rules. It was the same time some corruption was discovered, and they changed a lot of rules and
discovered.
Yeah, and everything everything was very hard. Everything was very hard, and I didn't have that time to stay in chaos, you know. So my dad got sick, because I had actually the best time of my life was in Malaysia. my wife and I, when we speak about it, it was in Malaysia. I had a good life. I had friends, you know. We enjoyed our friends. We had time to enjoy our friends. Things that in Brazil and here in America, it's very hard to get time. You know, things that are valuable the most is time and people. And the craziness in America or in Brazil, we never had. In Malaysia, thanks God, I used to have. But unfortunately, things didn't work through. And then I moved back to Brazil, back and forth, Asia all the time. Until the point I said, you know, I can't keep traveling like that because I always spend a lot of money doing this. And in 2017, I moved to US. You know, I applied for a visa. It worked out, and I moved to US. And then I settled down because I couldn't travel outside the US because it was like a work visa. But, you know, immigration in America, you never know. If you go out, you never know if you can come back in, right? Until my green card get approved. And now my green card got approved, I can travel. Not all the time, but that's why I took so long to go back to KL. I think from 2016 or 17 until this year, like 3 years or 4 years without traveling to KL. You know? But
Okay.
not so many seeds.
Let's not talk about
so many back and forth.
What happens in Chowkit stays in Chowkit.
Yes.
I wanna actually kick the same question off to Professor Adam now. The question of after Malaysia, where did you go? Yeah. So like you had this thing going on in Malaysia with Jiu-Jitsu and you were fighting in one championship, and now you are residing in Thailand, right?
Yeah. Well, I came back to Malaysia for a bit, and this was just before, a little bit before MASMMAA, so I didn't quite have the training environment that could really push me, especially for my striking. So I went back to Thailand, and then after getting back into Thailand again and getting back into Muay Thai and training Jiu-Jitsu, I met up with my Jiu-Jitsu master again, Ricardo Laborio, and he asked me, he goes, "Oh, you still want to keep fighting Muay Thai?" I said, "No, I wouldn't mind actually getting back into MMA again." And then he said, "How about you come to American Top Team, coach Muay Thai, and then get to train MMA?" I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure." And then, but at that time, my wife just secured a contract with international school, and she's like, "You gonna go to the States?" I'm like, "Yeah, can you wait?" So I went 98, 99, and I came back, and you know, thank God my wife was still here. And then I was approached by one of my older jiu-jitsu students in Bangkok before I left to the States, and he said, "If you want to open up a jiu-jitsu academy, let's do that." And then after that, that's when it just started rolling. After that, you know, that's, as they say, right, that's all she wrote. So in between,
to open a jiu-jitsu academy in Malaysia or
in Bangkok, it was one of my jiu-jitsu
okay.
students when I was training Muay Thai and teaching jiu-jitsu part-time. He was one of the students there.
Okay.
Right,
okay.
right. Okay.
I have sorry, Rashid. I have one final question for the two professors that we have on the show. I got a question to ask about your advices. Should jiu-jitsu dojos, gyms open again once if this country's quarantine period decides to get lifted? Should they open immediately and start operations? Yeah, for Professor Marcos and Professor Adam. Sorry, I want to ask Professor Marcos first. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna give my I don't know exactly what's the situation in KL right now. Now I know by talking to my friends, my students, but I believe it's the same everywhere in the world, right? So it doesn't change that much. I think the academies, the schools, they should open, they should reopen, but I don't believe they should hurry to reopen. The problem now that I can see is that a lot of people, they are closed for so long, and they are waiting for the release of this lockdown, and they are in a hurry. Oh, I need to open it. Here in US, they released and then they locked down again. They released, they locked. So some clubs, they reopened and they had to close again. They open, they have to close again. So I believe this is the worst movement to do. Once we are open, once 100% safe for people, because the truth being said is we only going to be 100% safe once we are immune. There's no other way. This virus doesn't going to go away. The virus is already here, and it will not disappear. You know, it's not like, oh, we're going to stay home until the virus disappears. I heard that from people. The virus will not disappear. It's like H1N1 is already there, and people live a normal life with this virus. You know, it's like any other flu virus. But this one is very, very dangerous because of the way it spreads. It spreads like crazy. So we're going to get immune. I don't know when. I don't know when this curve is going to go down naturally. If it's a vaccine coming up, or I don't think anytime soon we're going to have a vaccine, maybe 1 or 2 years. So we just need to be careful and not in a hurry. But yes, I believe everybody should open their clubs. If we stop exercising, if we stop training, if we stop our taking care of our health in a physical way, our mind going to get crazy. People will suffer other diseases much worse than COVID. We know diabetes in Malaysia, for example, is a very high factor of cause of death. So yes, we should reopen. We need to be more certain of our hygiene inside the clubs. You know, things that I quarrel with my students a lot of time. You know, don't start because Malaysia is very hot. Start sweating too much. You know, mop the mats more often. We do it after training, but we have to do sometimes during training. We have to do clean our hands during training. We have to, you know, finish training, go straight to shower. Don't leave the academy start without shower. Even though if I'm gonna shower at home 2 hours later, it's too late. If any bacteria on your skin, you're already infected. So shower right after, you know. Yeah, if you don't have a shower at the gym to do right after, you know, do some use alcohol. You know, I'm not a specialist.
The wipes, right?
Yeah,
the body wipes.
Exactly. I'm not an infectologist or, you know, a specialist, but one thing I know, because this culture is very strong in Brazil. We finished training. Back in the days, not so much, but nowadays, even before the COVID, once we start hearing more about, because in Brazil we don't have staph bacteria, it's very rare. These things we found out in US. In Brazil we have something called furúnculo. It's a small staph. Let's like this. We used to shower a lot after training. Right after training, straight to shower. You know, and in Asia, it's not that common. Maybe because the clubs don't have a shower or something like that. But find a way. But just be careful and don't hurry. Don't go crazy. You know, keep some limitations in numbers in classes. Not so many students, not so crowded. Even if you have to put more classes, you know. I have a protocol. I have actually 10,000 protocols here on my desk because I collect from Renzo, I collect from Abirrian in Brazil, from Ian Cabral in Spain, from some of his students in China. We have some WhatsApp groups that we keep in touch. I'm always in touch with Adam, you know, my students, Aaron, Fang, the guys in KL, Bruninho. So we keep always in touch. Pedro Falbo, all these guys. So I kept compiling protocols. And the truth is, I myself, I cannot see a perfect protocol because we don't know this virus. The truth is, it's a lot of misinformation. So
True.
at the same time, I think everybody should reopen. I think everybody should be very, very careful and not so much in a hurry. That's the only thing I'm certain of.
What about your takes, Professor Adam? on that question.
Ditto what Professor Marcos said. Done. He just basically hogged the whole light.
You're such.
I was like waiting, like, oh, but that's my point. I want to say that. Don't say that. Give me something.
Yeah. Between the BJJ guys,
Here's the chip movement. The chip movement.
BJJ guys, cowboy boots, sowing seeds, all think the same way, right?
There you go.
All right, Danny Senior. Of course, this lockdown around the world has affected the stuff that you're doing. But pre that, you guys were doing really well in terms of getting stuff, help from the government in terms of, is it important to get government funding, or are we able to go the corporate way, especially for youth?
It's important to get government support. Funding isn't always forthcoming from them, you know. So, but you have to provide them with the evidence and the proof that what you're doing works. And we all know it works, and every person around this table knows it works. But you have to prove it to government, you know, before they. I mean, I always tell people, why should they support MMA when there's 1,000 other sports out there that's already recognised and already has a base in government? So why should they support us? So we have to go like BJJ and like MMA gyms and tell them why and how good we are and prove it to them, you know. So it is important to get support. Funding is the last bit of the equation that they'll come to you with, you know. But there are other big organizations out there worldwide who want to fund organizations like ourselves and the guys around the table. So yeah.
So has it been, you know, for the kids? You said earlier it was about the motivation, and you know it's a brand new sport. But what else there? I mean, tell us a bit about that education bit that you've merged with the kids in youth, because it's something they have a future to. If not, as we know, like only 1-2% will be top fighters in any sport. What happens to the rest? And you've done something like that.
Yeah, so I think Darren touched on it earlier on. There has to be some kind of progression for kids coming through our sport. I mean, MMA certainly started backwards with the UFC, and then we're trying to build an amateur scene now, you know. So whereas every other sport starts as a pure amateur sport, you know. So we'll have to build something for them and give them a progression. And as you say, not every person that comes in that door is going to be the greatest fighter in the gym. So we'll have to make it all inclusive, and we'll have to give something for everyone, you know. And we certainly found that most of the kids that we were attracting, a lot of them had issues with education. So we were able to link up with some youth services and groups over here that could provide that. And that built our whole program for kids. So we know we can get them an education. We can bring them down the IMMAF route of progression schemes and coaching qualifications. So they'll always have something. And as I said earlier, the young guys and girls who started with us in this program are now themselves mentors and coaches. So they have a long-term future in the sport.
Right. Okay, Darren, I suppose you're the most neutral one out of these gentlemen here. Well, neutral as in, but the question is, there's always been this argument whether, you know, in martial arts, everyone says, you know, wrestling is better, BJJ is better, you know, you got to be a better striker. And, you know, for you, sorry to put you under pressure here. And you know,
no worries.
What do you think would be, I wouldn't say the you know, what would be the base in terms of doing MMA? Which
lifting?
Because Darren just
get in the cage and clean guys out of the ring.
Oh, that's a pretty interesting question. MMA is really, it's MMA. It's different. You know, the pace is unlike any other sport. You get world champion kickboxers getting knocked out by wrestlers because the bell starts and these guys just come out swinging, and there's no sort of feeling out process. I think the short answer is wrestling, purely because of the grind and the pace that these guys put themselves through. you know, there's no real time in the match, and how do I put this? Short answer is wrestling, positional wrestling,
Okay.
and boxing. You know,
Because the reason I'm asking you this, and I'll go back to Danny Senior, is that something that the kids have to start with? Because he says wrestling, but what do kids, and this is also, it's open to the rest of you. I'll ask Danny Senior first. Danny, is wrestling a good base for kids to start with?
Well, sort of. Look, we are trying to get away from the fact that when people talk about MMA, they throw in about 5 other different combat sports. I mean, we don't. These kids don't know it as wrestling. They don't know it as karate or kickboxing or judo or BJJ. They know it as MMA. That's what they do. They have grown up in the sport. I mean, so we don't mix it up. Although we have got probably a legend of a wrestling coach in the gym called Dave Finlay. Are you familiar with Dave Fit Finlay that was in WWE? Yeah. It's his father. So he's he's 83 years of age, an absolute legend of a man who formed wrestling. He was Olympic. I think he was British Olympic coach at one stage. So the wrestling has made a huge difference to us. Obviously, we favoured the stand-up from the karate background, but the wrestling has made a huge difference. But we're trying to get away from that there is it's a separate sport, and I hate when I hear people saying, well, I went to my boxing coach today and I went to you have to go to a place where it encompasses everything to be good at the sport,
Right. Prof Marcos, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, obviously, I wouldn't say that you're biased, but do kids need to be, as Danny said, to be all-rounder now and not focus too much on, especially growing up in youth MMA now, especially amateur MMA?
Yeah, they need to be more rounded. I see MMA as a totally different sport. Back when we had the Vale Tudo era, like people used to train Jiu-Jitsu and go to a Vale Tudo, didn't have MMA that time, and fight a karate guy, and a judo guy used to fight a taekwondo guy. This doesn't happen anymore, and whoever doesn't have a well-rounded background, because I know kids nowadays, they start training MMA. They don't come from any jiu-jitsu background. They don't come from any Muay Thai. When they start MMA. What do you do? I do MMA. Is the sport they do? Is it a whole different sport? It's not like, oh, MMA is the junction, is the fusion of jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai. This is over. Whoever has this mentality nowadays is out of the game. So you have to train MMA. You have to train, of course, jiu-jitsu for MMA, boxing for MMA, Muay Thai for, because it's different. The mindset's different, the position is different, the reactions are different. Boxing, you wear big gloves, you can cover like this. MMA, you wear a 4-ounce gloves. If you do this, you're gonna still get hit. So that's just a silly example, but the way you move is different. So yes, I believe the youth should be 100% well-rounded.
Now, Prof Adam, obviously there's been this fear.
You said exactly the same thing I wanted to do before. You just didn't.
Don't worry, I'm gonna ask you a different question anyway, so you're safe. No. And you've trained kids, you've done BJJ and all that, and you've done MMA professionally as well. Now, from taking on what they've told you, why is there this fear? There's this fear of other martial arts association of MMA as a whole, because they feel like they're taking away the kids from those individual martial arts. What are your thoughts on that?
Are you saying the traditional martial art communities are fearful of MMA?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. That's a good one. Marcus, on to you. No.
You go.
I look, in regards to financial baseline, MMA nowadays, modern MMA, amateur MMA, it's well, number one now it's in mass media, so it has a broader reach, but it's also exciting, right? And it seems it's a double-edged sword, right? It's modern, right? Everyone likes the whole modern appeal, but the thing is that MMA is a mixture of traditional martial arts. But in regards to the traditional martial arts community now, I can see why they'd be fearful, because it's MMA is a lot more attractive to the youth. So therefore, the traditional martial arts community financially could possibly suffer from losing those students.
Okay.
So in regards to the financial perspective, yeah, definitely MMA is more threatening. And also the broadcasting of it, right? I mean, like, no offense, the only traditional martial arts that get a pretty strong broadcast as well is any of the martial arts that are in the Olympics, hence taekwondo or judo or boxing, you know, or wrestling. But that's also dependent on the country's default sport. So in Japan, well, that's a no-brainer, right? In Europe, also judo is also a no-brainer. Boxing as well. You know, in Malaysia, boxing would definitely be more sought out for an Olympic sport than judo. But it's kind of a pity though, because Malaysia at one point had some pretty good judo players.
Yeah. Now here's the thing though. Even though they're fearful, MMA with youth. Now, the more youth take up MMA, it also benefits the other martial arts, because you still need to learn your individual sports, martial arts. So it would benefit all the martial arts in the long run. But why do they not see that? That's my question. Dan, whoever can answer, Prof Marcos.
Well, I mean, anything that's foreign and young and uncertain, people have a natural fear, right? And also in regards to, there's also in, you know, whether we like to admit it or not, in martial arts, there's also a slight undertone of tribalism, right? This is my tribe. I have to protect it. You know, we got to stay strong. We got to stick together. Don't go over there, you know? And that's usually enforced when there's in all sense of respect, a sense of ignorance behind that's backed, because they're fearful of it, but yet they're not willing to investigate, right, or educate. And you can see some of the modern martial arts schools that have traditional martial arts like judo, like karate or taekwondo, that have adopted that open mind, and that have incorporated bits of MMA or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu into their curriculum. And you can see how they're the ones who are, I wouldn't say surviving, but they're the ones who are better off.
Yeah.
Right. So Daniel, Junior, you got a question?
Yeah, I do have a question for my senior and for Darren as well. What's this? Now, I understand, Danny, that you take in the kids, right? You taking the kids into your gym and they can come and train as long as there's commitment and stuff. I just want to ask, like, if you could put, like, instead of taking them in, instead you place coaches into schools for maybe mixed martial arts, but then again, we just had a discussion that mixed martial arts have that stigma of, like, you know, the dangerous sport. How would you want to put the influence of MMA into schools? Now, this question is broken for Danny and Darren as well, since Darren, you're working with youth development. Yeah.
I go back to what I was saying earlier. You have to prove your worth. You know, you can't just tell people this is a great sport and we should be doing this. You have to prove to anybody that's willing to listen how beneficial this sport is. You know, every combat sport in its origin had a bad reputation. Karate, when it first came about, was seen as this violent thing, and I'm old enough to remember that every newspaper item where somebody went to a karate class and committed a crime, the headline would have been "Karate Killer," you know, even though they only done it for a week, you know. But so you have to prove the reputation of the sport, that it's not just this uncivilized thuggery, you know, that there's skill behind it, there's dedication behind it, there's commitment behind it, all things that a good employer would like to have in somebody in their workplace, you know. So all those things are beneficial, and all those things you can sell, or you can prove that this sport and all the other sport, BJJ, etc., have a proven track record. But it's about proving that, not just saying it and hoping somebody will take your word for it, you know.
Okay. Darren, what about you?
Yeah, pretty much what Danny said, you know, like the
he did a
educational
Marcus.
values.
He did an Adam. It's a Malaysian thing, is it? Is this a Malaysian?
Don't let the old man speak first. That's the trick.
Man, so much wisdom to be gained. Yeah, the educational values really have to be exemplified, and the only way to prove that is by example, really, you know. Having members of the community show their worth in generating, you know, perceived value through this sport. So, yeah, I mean, like Danny pretty much summed it all up.
Okay,
you got your worth, you know.
I got something to add on to that, actually. Like, okay, maybe instead of we say MMA, right? What about Jiu-Jitsu? Because this question is going to be specifically for Darren. But, you know, because we see a lot of schools have taekwondo, karate, you know, even judo, but not many schools have Jiu-Jitsu inside of it. Like, what do you think the argument is there to try to stick Jiu-Jitsu into schools?
Is this sorry? Dan, is this from Malaysia, or are you talking about in regards
Malaysia?
to
Malaysia.
Oh,
this one's
okay.
in Malaysia, yeah.
Well, in Malaysia, I don't think Jiu-Jitsu's made it into the schools yet, simply because we have no persatuan, there's no association, you know. So unless Jiu-Jitsu itself is officially recognized by the sports ministry, the Olympic Council, there's no real way to implement that into any of the existing youth programs, unlike judo and karate, who have laid down the groundwork for decades, you know. And that's something that the Jiu-Jitsu guys should be looking into, getting a proper persatuan set up the way that MMA has done for the athletes in this country. And from there, you know, trying to build a base and enter into the mainstream school system.
Yeah. Can I maybe come in there just for a second? Yeah. The way we have done it, and it has taken a few years, as we've said, is that we can show that we can give kids an academic qualification as well as the sport. So kids that maybe are struggling at school, that don't want to sit in a classroom, we do all our education in the ring or in the cage. The kids sit around the ring, the teacher comes in and sits with them before they train. So if you have kids that are struggling with that in the school setting, maybe your sport can come in and benefit that way, you know. So you don't have to sell the sport so much, you sell the education side of it, you know.
That's a really good idea. Because
that's how Jigoro Kano did it for judo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right.
And
okay.
Anko Atosho and karate done it as well. So
that's true. I'm sorry. No, that's true. That's true. And Ginshin Funakoshi. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Thank you very much, gentlemen. Between the cowboy boots and sowing seeds, it was really informative conversations that we've had over the past.
Like the village people.
Time. Yes, it is the village people, isn't it? But you know,
which one is Marcus?
Bro.
But yeah, it's been quite.
It wasn't me.
Oh dear, no, we're all in trouble. But yes, on behalf of MASMMAA, thank you very much for coming all the way from the US, Northern Ireland, over crossing Bangkok, as well as Sabahan in Kuala Lumpur. So thank you very, very much, guys. I hope to be able to catch up with you guys in the flesh one day, also, or get you guys on again, because there's plenty to talk about and plenty for everyone else to learn as well. So thank you for giving your time to us. And we hope to be able to see you again.
Thank you, Rashid.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rashid.
For those of you out there in the audience, if you do have any questions, put it down in the comments. Of course, do like our page, but at the same time, we hope to be able to hear from you, especially those here in Malaysia. But from us here at MASMMAA, for myself and Daniel, thank you very much. Good night and stay home, stay safe. Bye-bye.
Selamat Raya.
Willing to do what it takes to get there. I think he signed to One Warrior.
Yeah, I was gonna say that he signed to One Warriors. I think he did an episode with
Amo DL, those guys. I haven't really. I would love to.
I think any fighter